What the hell did you do? Brooke demanded, slamming the door of my classroom. I looked up calmly from the art project I was preparing. Good morning to you too, Brooke. Shouldn't you be on your honeymoon? Nathan's gone. He left a note saying he's filing for an annulment and has evidence of criminal activity. He mentioned you by name. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. What did you tell him? The truth, I said simply. Something you've never been particularly fond of. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Pure Revenge Stories. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you who have subscribed to this channel. Before we dive into today's story, I want to say a quick prayer for all of you. May you find strength in your darkest moments, clarity when facing difficult choices, and the courage to stand in your truth even when it's easier to stay silent. May your kindness be returned tenfold, and may you always remember your worth is not determined by others' opinions of you. Amen. Now, let's get into this story about a sister's betrayal, a shocking revelation, and the dress that changed everything. I stood in the corner of the reception hall, nursing a glass of champagne that I couldn't afford. The crystal flute felt foreign in my hands, much like I felt in this room full of people celebrating my sister Brooke's wedding. My navy blue dress from Target had seemed perfectly fine in my apartment mirror this morning, but now, surrounded by designer gowns and custom suits, it screamed budget from every polyester thread. The grand ballroom of the Westfield Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and elaborate floral arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly rent. White roses and peonies cascaded from towering centerpieces on each table, and champagne flowed freely from a fountain near the dessert station. It was exactly the kind of extravagant display I'd come to expect from Brooke, beautiful, excessive, and designed to impress. I'd barely spoken to anyone since arriving an hour ago. Most of the guests were either Brooke's sorority sisters or Dad's business associates, people who knew me only as Brooke's little sister, if they knew me at all. I'd hoped my father might seek me out, but he was too busy playing proud patriarch, accepting congratulations for the daughter who had followed in his footsteps to become a successful investment banker. Did you seriously wear a $39.99 dress to my wedding? Brooke's voice cut through the ambient chatter as she approached, her white Vera Wang gown rustling expensively. God, Maddie, you couldn't splurge just this once? It's literally the most important day of my life. My cheeks burned as nearby guests pretended not to listen. I thought it looked nice, I defended weakly, tugging at the hem that suddenly felt too short. Brooke rolled her eyes dramatically, ensuring our audience could appreciate her dismay. This is so typical. Always trying to make yourself the center of attention with your poor teacher routine. Would it kill you to make an effort for once? I am making an effort, I hissed, trying to keep my voice down. This dress cost my entire entertainment budget for the month. Tragic, Brooke laughed, turning to her bridesmaids who had clustered around us. Maddie thinks she deserves a medal for spending $40 on a dress from the clearance rack. The women tittered as if on cue, their matching rose gold dresses shimmering under the ballroom lights. I recognized several of them from high school. The same girls who had laughed when Brooke accidentally spilled punch on my prom dress. Some things never changed. Don't worry, Brooke stage whispered to them, loud enough for me to hear. I made sure the photographer knows not to include her in the family portraits. Those are for the wedding album, not a Target catalog. The laughter grew louder. I downed my champagne in one gulp, fighting back tears. This was supposed to be different. We were adults now. I was 29, Brooke was 31. We'd survived our parents' messy divorce, our mother's death from cancer 3 years ago, our father's remarriage to a woman barely older than us. Somewhere in all that chaos, I'd foolishly hoped we might find a way to be actual sisters. You know what, Brooke? Congratulations on your special day. I set down my empty glass. I hope your marriage lasts longer than the time you spent considering my feelings. I turned to leave, but Brooke grabbed my wrist. Don't you dare make a scene, she hissed, her perfect smile still in place for any watching guests. Dad's already upset you didn't contribute to the wedding. The least you could do is pretend to be happy for me. Contribute. I pulled my arm away. You mean the $50,000 wedding that Dad paid for entirely? The wedding with a dress that costs more than my car? That wedding. It's not my fault you chose to be a kindergarten teacher, she snapped. Some of us have ambition. That stung. I'd wanted to teach since we were children, when I would help Brooke with her homework despite being 2 years younger. Teaching wasn't just a job to me, it was a calling. One that Brooke had belittled consistently since I graduated with my education degree. Ambition isn't measured by the price tag on your clothes, Brooke. I straightened my shoulders. Enjoy your wedding. I'm going home. Perfect, she smirked. Nathan and I won't have to be embarrassed by that dress in any more photos. Nathan, her investment banker husband of 3 hours, whom she'd met at a charity gala last year. He seemed nice enough the few times I'd met him, if a bit reserved. Currently, he was across the room talking with my father, both men looking serious despite the celebration. I caught his eye briefly as I headed for the exit, and he gave me a small nod. Was it my imagination, or did I see a hint of sympathy in his expression? As I pushed through the heavy doors of the ballroom, I heard someone call my name. It was Laura, my stepmother, hurrying after me in her too-tight gold dress. Maddie, wait. She caught up to me in the lobby. You're not leaving already, are you? The cake cutting is in half an hour. Laura was only 7 years older than me, a fact that had never stopped feeling strange. She'd been my father's executive assistant before becoming his wife, and while I couldn't blame her entirely for the dissolution of my parents' marriage, it was hard to separate her from the pain of that time. I'm not feeling well, I lied. Migraine coming on. Tell Dad I said goodbye. Laura frowned, her heavily made-up eyes narrowing with suspicion. He'll be disappointed. You know how important family is to him. I almost laughed at the irony. My father, Gregory Wilson, successful investment banker and family man, as long as the family in question was doing exactly what he wanted. His love had always been conditional, measured in achievements and social appearances. I'm sure he'll survive, I said. He has his star daughter today. Laura sighed. Maddie, I wish you wouldn't. Please don't, I interrupted. Not today. Just tell him I wasn't feeling well. I walked away before she could respond, pushing through the revolving door and into the cool evening air. The valet looked surprised to see a guest leaving so early, but retrieved my old Honda Civic without comment. As I slid into the driver's seat, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror, eyes bright with unshed tears, cheeks flushed with humiliation. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman who didn't belong at that wedding, in that family, in that life. The drive to my small apartment took 20 minutes, 20 minutes of replaying Brooke's mocking voice and the laughter of her friends. By the time I arrived home, I'd moved from hurt to anger. I kicked off my sensible heels, changed into sweatpants, and settled on the couch with a pint of ice cream and a bad movie. The perfect pity party. My apartment was tiny but comfortable, a one-bedroom in a converted Victorian house near the elementary school where I taught. My salary didn't stretch far in the city, but I'd made it home with secondhand furniture, plants, and colorful artwork from my students. It was nothing like the sleek downtown condo where Brooke lived, or the mansion where we'd grown up, but it was mine, paid for with my own hard work. As the movie played, my mind wandered back through the long history with my sister. Brooke had always been the golden child, excelling at everything she touched: academics, sports, social politics. I'd been the quieter sister, more interested in books and art than competition. Our parents had noticed the difference early and made their preferences clear. Why can't you be more like your sister? Mom would ask when I brought home a B+ instead of Brooke's A. Brooke never gives us this much trouble, Dad would sigh when I questioned his rules. But it wasn't just our parents. Brooke herself had made sure I understood my place in the hierarchy. When we were children, she would accidentally break my favorite toys. As teenagers, she'd spread rumors about me at school, ensuring I remained socially isolated. She'd even convinced my first boyfriend that I was emotionally unstable after seeing us together at a party. The pattern continued into adulthood. When Mom died, Brooke had somehow positioned herself as the primary griever, accepting condolences while I handled the practical arrangements. She'd also managed to borrow the money Mom had left specifically for my education, spending it on a trip to Europe with friends. Mom would have wanted me to expand my horizons, she'd explained when I confronted her. Dad, of course, saw nothing wrong with this. The movie ended, and I realized I'd been staring blankly at the screen, lost in memories. It was nearly midnight. The wedding reception was likely winding down now. Brooke and Nathan would be heading to their hotel suite, preparing for their morning flight to Bali for a 2-week honeymoon. Life would go on as it always had, Brooke winning, me retreating to lick my wounds. Not this time, I muttered to myself, digging my spoon into the now-melting ice cream. I'm done caring what Brooke thinks. It was a lie, of course. I'd been telling myself the same thing for 20 years, and yet here I was, hurt and humiliated once again. Some lessons take a lifetime to learn, or maybe some wounds never truly heal. I fell asleep on the couch, the TV still playing in the background, dreaming of a world where my sister saw me as an equal, where my father valued my choices, where the price of my dress didn't determine my worth. I must have fallen into a deep sleep, because the buzzing of my phone startled me awake like an electric shock. The clock read 2:17 a.m., and an unknown number lit up my screen. Thinking it might be an emergency, I answered. Hello. My voice was thick with sleep. Maddie? It's Nathan, Brooke's husband. His voice was tense, almost unrecognizable. I sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. Nathan? Is everything okay? Is Brooke all right? Despite everything, my first thought was concern for my sister. Brooke's fine. Well, not fine. She's passed out in our hotel suite. He sighed heavily. I need to talk to you. It can't wait until morning. My stomach tightened with anxiety. What's going on? Not over the phone. Can I come by your place? I know it's late, but how do you even know where I live? I interrupted, suddenly suspicious. Nathan and I had barely exchanged 10 sentences in the year he'd been dating my sister. Brooke's phone. She has your address and her contacts. Another pause. Please, Maddie. It's important. I hesitated. This was strange, beyond strange. My sister's brand new husband wanting to visit me in the middle of their wedding night? But something in his voice, a note of desperation, made me relent. Okay. I'm at 742 Maple Street, apartment 3B. The building's front door code is 5824. Thank you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead, and I stared at my phone, wondering what I'd just agreed to. My apartment was a mess. Ice cream container on the coffee table, wedding clothes tossed over a chair, dishes in the sink from yesterday's breakfast. I scrambled to tidy up, then realized the absurdity of worrying about housekeeping when my sister's husband was making a mysterious midnight visit. I changed out of my sweatpants into jeans and a simple t-shirt, ran a brush through my tangled hair, and splashed water on my face. The woman in the mirror looked back at me with anxious eyes. What could be so urgent that Nathan would leave his bride on their wedding night? Exactly 20 minutes later, a soft knock at my door announced his arrival. I peered through the peephole, confirming it was indeed Nathan before opening the door. He stood in my doorway, still wearing his wedding tuxedo, though the bow tie was undone and hung limply around his neck. His dark hair was disheveled, and his eyes were red-rimmed, either from exhaustion or tears, I couldn't tell which. Thanks for letting me come, he said, stepping inside when I moved aside. I know this is weird. Beyond weird, I agreed, suddenly conscious of how small my apartment must seem to someone who frequented penthouses and country clubs. What's so urgent that you're at your wife's sister's apartment in the middle of your wedding night? Nathan paced my small living room, running his hands through his hair. He looked like a man on the edge of a breakdown. Do you want something to drink? I offered, unsure of the protocol for this bizarre situation. I have water, tea, or wine. Actually, I think there's some whiskey somewhere. No, thanks. I've had enough tonight. He stopped pacing and faced me directly. I made a terrible mistake today. I married Brooke. I blinked at him. That's Not funny. It's not a joke. He finally stopped pacing and faced me. I shouldn't have gone through with it. I knew it weeks ago, but everything was arranged. People had traveled. I convinced myself it was cold feet. I crossed my arms defensively. Look, if you're having regrets, that's between you and Brooke. I don't see why you're here at 2 a.m. telling me about it. Why am I here? Nathan laughed humorlessly. Because you're the only person who might understand. The only person who sees Brooke for who she really is. His words hit uncomfortably close to home. Did I see Brooke for who she really was? Had I always known, beneath the hurt and the jealousy, that my sister wasn't just privileged and entitled, but something worse? I don't know what you want from me, I said carefully. He pulled his phone from his pocket, pulled up a video, and handed it to me. Because of this, one of the groomsmen sent it to me an hour ago. I hesitated before taking the phone. This felt wrong, invasive. But curiosity won out, and I pressed play. The video showed the whole way outside the reception ballroom. Brooke and a man I recognized as her ex-boyfriend were locked in an intimate embrace, kissing passionately. The timestamp showed it had been taken just before the cake cutting, around the time I'd left the reception. Oh my God, I whispered, my hand flying to my mouth. Keep watching, Nathan said grimly. I did. The kissing continued, and then I heard Brooke's voice clearly. I never stopped loving you, Mark. Nathan was just the sensible choice, stability, money, my father's approval. But he's so boring. Nothing like you. The male voice responded, run away with me tonight. After the reception. He'll never know until it's too late. Brooke laughed. I can't do that. There's too much at stake. But we can keep seeing each other, like before. Nathan works constantly. He'll never suspect. I stopped the video, feeling sick. Nathan, I'm so sorry. He sank onto my couch, his shoulders slumped. I confronted her at the hotel. She denied it at first, then got angry, said I was overreacting. When I told her I wanted an annulment, she threatened to tell everyone I'd been abusive, that's why she turned to Mark. He looked up at me, his eyes haunted. She said no one would believe me over her. That sounds like Brooke, I said quietly, sitting beside him. She's always been manipulative. I knew she could be difficult, but this. He gestured at the phone. I never saw this coming. And then I remembered how she treated you at the reception. The things she said about your dress, making sure you weren't in photos. He shook his head. I should have seen the red flags. I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Brooke has always been good at showing people what they want to see, until they're no longer useful to her. We sat in silence for a moment, two people connected only by their hurt at the hands of the same woman. There's more, Nathan said finally. After I confronted her about the video, she got drunk, really drunk, and passed out. While she was unconscious, I checked her phone. He grimaced. I know that's wrong, but I had to know if there was more I didn't know about. And? I prompted, though part of me didn't want to hear the answer. I found texts between her and Mark going back months. They've been seeing each other the entire time we've been engaged. His voice caught. She was with him the night before our wedding. The betrayal was so profound, so callous, that I struggled to find words. I don't understand. Why marry you at all if she was in love with someone else? Money, Nathan said bluntly. Security. Mark is a struggling artist. I'm a successful investment banker with family connections. Brooke wanted the lifestyle, not the husband. It made a horrible kind of sense. Brooke had always valued status and material comfort above all else. She learned that from our father, who measured success in dollars and cents. I need your help, Maddie. Nathan's voice was earnest now. You're the only one who really knows what she's like. Your father thinks she's perfect. My family is charmed by her. If I try to end this marriage, she'll destroy my reputation, my career. What can I possibly do? I asked. There's more. Nathan pulled out a USB drive from his jacket pocket. Last month, I found financial irregularities in our joint accounts. Money being transferred to offshore accounts. I tracked it. Brooke's been embezzling from my investment firm through access I gave her to help with our personal finances. My eyes widened. That's criminal. Exactly. I collected evidence, planning to confront her after the honeymoon. I was going to give her a chance to make it right. He laughed bitterly. I actually thought it might be some kind of mistake. I took the USB drive, turning it over in my hand. So, what do you want from me? Tomorrow, Brooke's going to wake up and either try to manipulate me into staying married or begin her campaign to paint me as the villain. His eyes met mine. I need someone to back up the truth. Someone who knows her character. Someone she's hurt too. I thought about all the years of Brooke's cruelty, the accidental destruction of my science project in 8th grade that won her first place, the rumor she spread in high school that I'd slept with my math tutor, which led to him being fired, the borrowing of the money our mother had left specifically for my education, which Brooke spent on a trip to Europe with friends. I also thought about what it would mean to publicly stand against my sister. The family fallout. Dad would almost certainly take her side. I'd be even more isolated than I already was. This is a lot to process, I said finally. What exactly are you asking me to do? Nathan leaned forward intently. If Brooke starts spreading lies about me, I need you to refute them. If she claims I was abusive, I need you to speak to my character. And if this goes to court, either for the annulment or the fraud, I need you to testify about her history of manipulation and dishonesty. You're asking me to testify against my own sister, I said slowly. I'm asking you to stand up for the truth, he countered. For justice. The weight of the decision pressed on me. On one hand, family loyalty had been drilled into me since childhood. On the other, that same family had never shown me the same loyalty. And what Nathan was describing went beyond Brooke's usual selfishness. Fraud and false accusations of abuse were serious crimes with real victims. I need to think about this, I said. I understand. Nathan stood up. But we don't have much time. Brooke is going to wake up tomorrow and she'll come looking for answers. He handed me a card with his private number. Call me when you decide. And Maddie? Thank you for listening. I know how hard this must be. After he left, I sat on my couch staring at the USB drive and his business card. The clock read 3:45 a.m. In a few hours, I'd have to be at school, bright and cheerful for 25 kindergartners who deserved better than a teacher distracted by family drama. I thought about Brooke in her perfect white dress, standing before friends and family vowing to love and honor a man she was already betraying. I thought about Nathan, discovering on what should have been the happiest day of his life that his new wife saw him as nothing more than a bank account. And I thought about myself, always on the outside of my own family, watching the golden child take while I struggled to be seen. I'll help you, I decided, though Nathan was no longer there to hear it. But not for revenge. For justice. I slept fitfully for the few remaining hours of night, dreams filled with wedding dresses that morphed into straitjackets and champagne flutes that shattered in my hands. The alarm blared at 6:30 a.m., leaving me barely 3 hours of sleep. I dragged myself through my morning routine, downing 2 cups of coffee as I prepared for the school day. My kindergarten classroom was typically my sanctuary, a colorful, joyful space where adult problems couldn't penetrate. But today, as I arranged materials for our butterfly life cycle project, I couldn't stop thinking about Nathan's revelations. The embezzlement accusation particularly troubled me. Financial fraud was serious, criminal, and completely at odds with the polished, respectable image Brooke had cultivated. But was it really? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Brooke had always taken what didn't belong to her. My toys as children. My friends in high school. My inheritance from Mom. She'd just graduated to larger targets. Mrs. Patel, the first grade teacher, poked her head into my classroom during prep period. Rough night? You look exhausted. I forced a smile. Just wedding stuff. My sister got married yesterday. How lovely. Though weddings can be draining. I hope you. She was interrupted by the classroom door slamming open so hard that it bounced against the wall. Brooke stood in the doorway, still wearing yesterday's clothes, her designer jeans and silk blouse now rumpled, her carefully highlighted hair disheveled. Her makeup was smeared, mascara tracking down her cheeks. Mrs. Patel's eyes widened. "I'll, catch you at lunch," she murmured, slipping past Brooke with an awkward nod. As soon as we were alone, Brooke advanced on me, her face a mask of fury. "What the hell did you do?" she demanded, her voice breaking with emotion. "I set down the butterfly models I'd been arranging. Good morning to you too, Brooke. Shouldn't you be on your honeymoon? Nathan's gone. He left a note saying he's filing for an annulment and has evidence of criminal activity. He mentioned you by name." Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "What did you tell him?" "The truth," I said simply. "Something you've never been particularly fond of." Brooke laughed incredulously, a high, unhinged sound. "He came to you in the middle of the night, and you believed whatever lies he told you? Are you that desperate for male attention?" I felt my temper rising, but forced myself to remain calm. This was exactly how Brooke operated, pushing buttons, making accusations, turning everything around until somehow I was the villain. "I saw the video, Brooke. With you and Mark. I heard what you said about Nathan." Her face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. "It was nothing. Wedding day jitters." "Jitters?" I echoed. "You told your ex-boyfriend that your husband was boring and that you'd keep seeing him behind Nathan's back. That's not jitters. That's premeditated betrayal." "It was a momentary weakness," she insisted. "I'd had too much champagne. Mark caught me off guard. Nathan's blowing it completely out of proportion. And the financial fraud? Was that jitters too?" Now she looked genuinely alarmed. "What are you talking about?" "The money you've been stealing from Nathan's firm. He has proof." Brooke's eyes darted around the classroom as if looking for an escape route. Then her expression hardened. She advanced on me until we were inches apart, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "Listen carefully. If you help him destroy my life, I will make sure everyone knows what a pathetic, jealous sister you've always been. I'll tell Dad you're trying to ruin my marriage out of spite. You'll lose what little family you have left." The threat hung in the air between us. 3 years ago, even 1 year ago, it would have worked. The fear of losing my father's conditional affection, tenuous as it was, would have been enough to make me back down. But something had shifted. Maybe it was seeing Brooke's true colors in that video. Maybe it was the realization that my family had never truly been mine to lose. Or maybe I'd simply reached my breaking point after years of being the family doormat. "No," I said firmly, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. Brooke blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. "What did you say?" I said no. "I'm done letting you hurt people, Brooke. Nathan doesn't deserve what you're planning to do to him, and I don't deserve how you've treated me our entire lives. So you're choosing a man you barely know over your own sister?" Her voice rose hysterically. Several students passing in the hallway turned to look through the classroom window. "I'm choosing truth over lies. Right over wrong." I turned back to my work, arranging butterfly life cycle cards with hands that trembled slightly. "You should go. My students will be here soon." Brooke stood frozen, as if she couldn't process that her usual tactics had failed. "You're making a huge mistake," she finally said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." I looked up at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. The perfect hair, the expensive clothes, the practiced expressions, all of it carefully constructed to hide the hollowness beneath. In that moment, I felt something unexpected: pity. "I think I'm beginning to understand exactly what you're capable of," I replied. "That's why I'm done being your victim." "You'll regret this," she spat, yanking open the door. "No," I said quietly as she stormed out. "For the first time in my life, I don't think I will." My students began filing in minutes later, their bright voices and innocent concerns a welcome distraction from the emotional storm that had just swept through. We spent the morning learning about metamorphosis, how caterpillars transform into something entirely new. The butterfly doesn't just grow wings, I explained to their upturned faces. It completely breaks down inside the chrysalis and rebuilds itself from scratch. "Does it hurt?" asked Lily, her forehead wrinkled with concern. I paused, considering. I think change often does hurt, but sometimes we have to fall apart before we can become who we're meant to be. The children nodded sagely, accepting this wisdom with the open-mindedness that made teaching them such a joy. If only adults could maintain that capacity for growth and transformation. At lunch, my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Brooke found you." I typed back, "Yes." It was ugly, but I'm in. His response came immediately. "Thank you. Meeting with my lawyer at 4. Can you join?" I looked at the butterfly models scattered across my desk. Metamorphosis. Breakdown and rebuild. "I'll be there," I replied. That afternoon, after my students had gone home, I sat in the polished conference room of a downtown law firm, feeling distinctly out of place in my casual teaching clothes. Nathan's attorney, Ms. Winters, was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who radiated competence and skepticism in equal measure. "So you're willing to provide a character statement regarding your sister?" she asked, studying me over her reading glasses. "More than that," I said. "I'm willing to testify about her history of manipulation, dishonesty, and exploitation if needed." Ms. Winters exchanged a glance with Nathan. "And you understand what this might mean for your family relationships?" I thought about my father, who had always taken Brooke's side. About Laura, who followed his lead in all things. About the extended family, who saw me as the less successful Wilson daughter. "I understand," I said. "But some things are more important than preserving a family image that was never real to begin with." "Very well." Ms. Winters slid a legal pad across the table. "I need you to write down specific instances of your sister's dishonest or manipulative behavior. Focus on financial matters if possible, given the nature of the allegations." For the next hour, I documented a lifetime of Brooke's transgressions, from childhood theft to adult embezzlement. The science fair project she'd sabotaged. The tutor she'd gotten fired with false accusations. The inheritance she'd stolen. With each example, I felt a weight lifting, as if I'd been carrying these grievances for years without realizing how heavy they'd become. "This is very helpful," Ms. Winters said when I finished, scanning my pages of notes. "Mr. Reynolds has substantial evidence of the financial improprieties, but your testimony adds a crucial pattern of behavior." Nathan, who had been quiet throughout my recitation, finally spoke. "What do you think our chances are?" "For the annulment?" "Excellent," Ms. Winters replied. "Ms. Wilson has provided enough evidence of fraud in the inducement to invalidate the marriage. As for the financial matter," she frowned. "That's more complicated. We have proof of the transfers, but proving criminal intent will be challenging." "What about the video?" I asked. "Doesn't that show intent to deceive?" "It certainly helps establish character," Ms. Winters agreed. "But financial fraud requires specific intent. We need more." "The text messages," Nathan suggested. There were exchanges with Mark where she discussed planning for, after the divorce, talking about how much she'd get in the settlement. Ms. Winters's eyebrows rose. "That would indeed be relevant. Do you have copies?" "On my laptop at home." I took screenshots. "Good. Send them to me tonight." Ms. Winters began packing up her files. "I'll file the annulment petition first thing tomorrow. Ms. Wilson, we may need you to submit a formal affidavit." "Whatever you need," I promised. As we left the law office, the setting sun cast long shadows across the downtown streets. Office workers streamed past us, heading home to normal lives untouched by the kind of betrayal and revelation that had upended ours. "Thank you," Nathan said as we waited for the valet to bring our cars. "I know this isn't easy for you." "Strangely, it's easier than I expected," I admitted. "Maybe I've been waiting years for someone to finally see Brooke for who she really is." "I should have seen it sooner," he said ruefully. There were signs. Comments she made about people. The way she treated service staff. Little lies that seemed harmless at the time. "She's good at hiding her true nature from people she wants to impress," I said. "Don't blame yourself." Nathan's car arrived first, a sleek black BMW that somehow suited him without seeming ostentatious. Before getting in, he turned to me. "This is just the beginning. Brooke won't go down without a fight. Are you ready for that?" Was I? My entire life had been spent avoiding conflict with my sister, surrendering rather than standing my ground. This would be different. This would be war. "I'm ready," I said, with more confidence than I felt. His smile was grim. "Then let the battle begin." The battle began sooner than expected. I woke the next morning to my phone exploding with notifications, missed calls from my father, texts from relatives, and a barrage of social media alerts. Bleary-eyed, I opened Facebook to find Brooke had posted a lengthy status update overnight. Heartbroken to share that my husband has abandoned me just days after our wedding. Some people show their true colors when you're at your most vulnerable. Worse, I've discovered my own sister has been secretly meeting with him, feeding him lies about me out of jealousy. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any other kind. Please respect my privacy during this difficult time. The post had hundreds of sympathetic comments and reactions. Several of our relatives had already weighed in with messages of support for Brooke and thinly veiled criticism of me and Nathan. My phone rang again. "Dad." I hesitated, then answered. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded without preamble. "Laura just showed me Brooke's post. Tell me you're not involved in whatever's happening with her marriage." "Good morning to you too, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Have you actually spoken to Brooke about this?" "Of course I have. She's devastated. Says Nathan's trying to get an annulment and that you're helping him. That you've been feeding him lies about her." "Did she mention that she was caught on video making out with her ex-boyfriend at the wedding? Or that she's been embezzling from Nathan's company?" There was a long silence. Then, "Those are serious accusations, Madison. Do you have proof?" "Yes. Nathan does too. That's why he's filing for an annulment." Another pause. "I'm coming over. We need to talk about this face to face. I'm about to leave for work. Call in sick. This is family. This is important." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, a knot forming in my stomach. Dad had used his banker voice, the tone that brooked no argument, that expected immediate compliance. I called the school to request a substitute, citing a family emergency. Then I made coffee and waited for the Inquisition to arrive. Dad showed up 40 minutes later, looking every inch the successful investment banker in his tailored suit and polished shoes. His silver-streaked hair was perfectly styled, his expression carefully controlled. Laura trailed behind him, looking uncomfortable in her designer workout clothes. "Let's cut to the chase," Dad said as soon as I closed the apartment door. "Brooke says you've turned against her. That you're trying to destroy her marriage out of jealousy." "That's not true," I said calmly. "Nathan came to me after he discovered Brooke's infidelity and financial fraud. I'm simply supporting the truth." "The truth?" Dad laughed humorlessly. "Your sister just got married. She's building a life with a good man from a good family. What possible truth could justify trying to tear that apart?" I took a deep breath. Nathan has video evidence of Brooke kissing her ex-boyfriend at the wedding. She told him she never stopped loving Mark, that she only married Nathan for his money and status. Dad's expression didn't change. Wedding day nerves. Cold feet. "It happens." "It wasn't just cold feet, Dad. She's been seeing Mark their entire engagement. And she's been stealing money from Nathan's investment firm." Stealing. Now his banker's facade cracked slightly. Financial impropriety was the one sin he couldn't easily dismiss. "What are you talking about?" "Embezzlement. Nathan gave her access to their joint accounts, and she's been transferring funds to offshore accounts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars." Laura gasped. Dad shot her a silencing look. "These are serious allegations," he said carefully. "If Nathan believes they're true, he should handle it privately with Brooke." "Why involve you at all?" "Because Brooke threatened to accuse him of abuse if he tried to leave her. She said no one would believe him over her. He needed someone who knows what she's really like." "And you think you know your sister better than her own father?" Dad's voice was dangerously quiet. "Yes," I said simply. "Because you've never wanted to see the real Brooke. You've only seen what you wanted to see, the perfect daughter who followed in your footsteps." Dad's face flushed. "This is ridiculous. You've always been jealous of your sister's success. always resented that she chose a practical career while you, he gestured dismissively at my modest apartment, chose this. This is a home I pay for myself, with a job I love, I said, feeling my own anger rising. And I've never been jealous of Brooke's success. I've been hurt by her cruelty, which you've enabled and excused her entire life. Cruelty? What are you talking about? The constant put-downs, the sabotage, the theft. You never saw any of it because you never wanted to. Laura, who had been silent until now, spoke up hesitantly. Greg, maybe we should listen. Stay out of this. Dad snapped, and Laura immediately retreated, physically taking a step back. I saw the dynamics so clearly then. Dad's absolute authority, never to be questioned. Laura's careful submission. The pattern that had been set in our household for as long as I could remember. Did Brooke tell you she stole the money Mom left me for education? I asked quietly. That she spent my inheritance on a European vacation while I worked 3 jobs to pay for college? Dad blinked, momentarily thrown. Your mother left that money for both of you to share. No, she didn't. The account was in my name only, specifically designated for my education. Brooke convinced the bank there had been a mistake. She forged documents, Dad. That's not sharing, that's theft. That's absurd. Brooke would never. Check the records, I challenged. The original account was titled Educational Trust for Madison Wilson. After Mom died, Brooke changed it to a joint account, then emptied it completely. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Dad's face. If there was a misunderstanding about the funds, I'm sure it can be resolved. But that has nothing to do with her marriage. It has everything to do with her character, I insisted. It shows a pattern of behavior. Brooke takes what she wants without regard for who gets hurt. Dad's phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked at me with renewed anger. Brooke just forwarded me messages from Nathan threatening to destroy her reputation and financial future, saying he has connections who can make sure she never works in finance again. May I see? I asked, holding out my hand. Reluctantly, Dad showed me the phone. The messages were indeed threatening and completely unlike Nathan's communication style. These are fake, I said immediately. Brooke created them to manipulate you, just like she's been manipulating everyone. That's enough. Dad exploded. I will not stand here and listen to you slander your sister. You need to decide where your loyalties lie, Madison. Either you support your family or you're against us. My loyalties lie with the truth, I said, meeting his gaze steadily. And if you're asking me to choose between honesty and blind family loyalty, then I've already made my choice. Dad's expression hardened into something I'd never seen directed at me before. Pure, cold disappointment. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Don't contact me or Brooke until you've come to your senses. He turned and walked out, Laura trailing behind him with an apologetic glance over her shoulder. The door closed with a decisive click, and I stood alone in my apartment, shaking with adrenaline and emotion. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Brooke's on the warpath. You okay? I typed back, just had a visit from my father. He's taken her side, as expected. I'm fine. The reply came quickly, I'm sorry. My lawyer says the annulment petition has been filed. Brooke will be served today. The storm was only beginning. Over the next week, Brooke escalated her campaign against us both. She gave a tearful interview to a local lifestyle magazine, portraying herself as the abandoned bride blindsided by betrayal. She created a social media narrative painting Nathan as controlling and emotionally abusive, and me as the jealous sister who'd always resented her success. Our extended family largely rallied around her. Aunts, uncles, and cousins sent me messages ranging from concerned, "Are you okay? This doesn't sound like you," to openly hostile. "How could you betray your own blood?" I stopped checking social media, unable to face the flood of misinformation and judgment. Meanwhile, Nathan's legal team was building their case. The financial evidence was damning. Once they knew where to look, they found a sophisticated scheme of transfers, hidden accounts, and falsified records. Brooke had stolen nearly $400,000 from Nathan's firm over the past 6 months. The DA is interested in the case, Ms. Winters informed us during a meeting in her office. Financial crimes of this magnitude fall under felony jurisdiction. You mean Brooke could go to prison? I asked, feeling a strange mix of vindication and distress. It's a possibility, Ms. Winters acknowledged. Though first-time offenders with good legal representation often receive probation and restitution orders instead. Nathan looked troubled. I don't necessarily want her in prison. I just want the truth acknowledged and my reputation protected. The criminal matter is separate from the annulment proceeding, Ms. Winters explained. But they're connected in terms of establishing fraud as grounds for invalidating the marriage. The court date for the annulment hearing was set for 3 weeks away. In the meantime, Brooke's public relations campaign continued. She appeared on a local morning show, expertly dabbing away tears as she described how her whirlwind romance had turned into a nightmare. I thought I knew him, she told the sympathetic host. But as soon as the ring was on my finger, he changed. Became controlling, suspicious. And then to involve my sister, to turn her against me. Her voice broke convincingly. Family is sacred. To lose them both at once is almost unbearable. I watched the performance with a mixture of disgust and reluctant admiration. Brooke had always been a skilled actress. It was how she'd navigated our family dynamics, school politics, professional relationships, always showing people exactly what they wanted to see. The day before the annulment hearing, I received an unexpected visitor at school. I was straightening up after the children had left when Laura appeared in my classroom doorway. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. I nodded, surprised. Laura and I had never been close. The age gap was too small for her to be a mother figure, and her relationship with my father had created an automatic barrier between us. She perched awkwardly on one of the tiny kindergarten chairs. "Your father doesn't know I'm here," she said. "He'd be furious if he found out." "Why are you here, then?" I asked, continuing to organize art supplies. Laura twisted her wedding ring nervously. "I found something. About the money your mother left you." I stopped what I was doing, giving her my full attention. "I was organizing your father's home office, and I came across some old bank statements." She pulled a folder from her designer handbag. "I think you should see these." The folder contained statements from the account my mother had established for my education. The original designation was clearly visible: Educational Trust for Madison Wilson. Later statements showed the account name change and a transfer of $85,000, my entire inheritance, to a personal account in Brooke's name. "She did steal it," I whispered, touching the papers as if they might disappear. I always knew, but Dad never believed me. "There's more," Laura said quietly. "There's a letter from your mother's attorney questioning the transfer, and a response from your father authorizing it." I looked up sharply. Dad knew. Laura nodded, not meeting my eyes. "The letter says the attorney expressed concerns about the legality of the transfer, given the specific designation of the funds. Your father overrode those concerns." My hands trembled as I processed this revelation. Not only had Brooke stolen my inheritance, but my father had helped her do it. Had known all along that I was telling the truth and had chosen to lie to my face. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked Laura. She looked up then, her expression troubled. "Because I've seen how your father and Brooke operate together. How they decide what the truth is and expect everyone else to fall in line." She took a deep breath. "I married your father because I loved him. I still do. But I've become complicit in things I'm not comfortable with. Like stealing from his younger daughter?" She winced. "Yes, and other things. Your father's not always the ethical businessman he appears to be. Brooke learned a lot from him, including some questionable financial practices. The implications were staggering." "Are you saying Dad might be involved in Brooke's embezzlement from Nathan's firm?" "I don't know the details," Laura said quickly. "But I wouldn't be surprised if he advised her. He's always teaching her wealth management strategies that seem to skirt legal boundaries." "Why tell me this now?" I pressed. "Why not 6 years ago when she took my money?" Laura looked ashamed. "I was new in the family then, still trying to establish my place. And to be honest, I was intimidated by Brooke. By both of them together. She gestured at the folder. But this annulment hearing, the accusations flying back and forth, it made me start questioning things. Looking more closely at patterns I'd been ignoring. "Can I keep these documents?" I asked. She nodded. "There are copies." And she hesitated. "I made copies of some other financial records that might be relevant to Nathan's case. Things that show your father's involvement in advising Brooke about offshore accounts." My heart raced. This was explosive information, potentially enough to not only secure Nathan's annulment, but also implicate my father in Brooke's financial crimes. "Thank you," I said sincerely. I know this wasn't easy. Laura stood to leave. "I should go. Your father's expecting me home for dinner." At the door, she paused. "Madison? Be careful tomorrow. Brooke and your father, they won't take this lying down. They'll do whatever it takes to protect themselves." After she left, I called Nathan immediately. "I have new evidence," I told him. "And it changes everything." The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. the next morning. I arrived at the courthouse at 8:30, clutching the folder Laura had given me. Nathan and Ms. Winters were already waiting in the lobby, reviewing documents at a small table. "These are remarkable," Ms. Winters said after examining the papers I'd brought. "They establish not only a pattern of financial misconduct by your sister, but potentially conspiracy involving your father. The judge will find this very relevant to the annulment petition." Nathan looked troubled. "This goes deeper than I thought." "Family dysfunction usually does," Ms. Winters replied dryly. "The question is, are you prepared to use this information? It could have serious repercussions for Mr. Wilson." I thought about my father. His cold dismissal when I'd told him the truth, his years of favoring Brooke at my expense, his role in stealing my inheritance. "Use it," I said firmly. "All of it." We were heading toward the courtroom when I saw them, Brooke and my father, walking side by side like conquering generals. Brooke was dressed conservatively in a navy suit, her hair pulled back in a modest ponytail, the picture of the wronged professional woman. Dad looked stern and protective beside her. They spotted us at the same moment. Brooke whispered something to Dad, whose eyes narrowed as he caught sight of the folder in Ms. Winters' hands. "What is that?" he demanded, approaching our group. "New evidence," Ms. Winters replied calmly. "Relevant to the proceedings." Brooke laughed dismissively. "More fabrications? You're really desperate, aren't you?" "Actually," I said quietly, "they're bank statements, showing how you stole my inheritance. And how Dad helped you." The color drained from my father's face. Brooke's confident smirk faltered. That's ancient history," she stammered. "It has nothing to do with my marriage. It speaks directly to character and pattern of behavior," Ms. Winters countered. "Both central to the fraud claim in the annulment petition." "Where did you get those documents?" Dad asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I met his gaze steadily. "Does it matter? They're authentic. You know they are." Dad's lawyer, a silver-haired man I recognized from his firm, approached our group. "Is there a problem here?" "No problem," Ms. Winters said smoothly. "Just some last-minute evidence to be presented to the judge." "I'd like to review it first," Dad's lawyer insisted. "You'll see it in court," Ms. Winters replied, checking her watch. "Which we should be entering now." As we moved toward the courtroom doors, Brooke grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. "You have no idea what you're doing," she hissed. "This won't just hurt me, it will destroy Dad's reputation too. Is that what you want?" I looked into her eyes, the same shade of blue as mine, yet somehow colder. "What I want is the truth. For once in our lives." "The truth?" She laughed bitterly. "The truth is you've always been jealous of me. Always resented that Dad loved me more. This is just your pathetic revenge." "No, Brooke," I said, gently removing her hand from my arm. "This is justice. Something long overdue in our family." The bailiff called for order as we entered the courtroom. I took a seat beside Nathan, feeling strangely calm. Whatever happened next, I had chosen truth over comfortable lies, right over easy wrong. For the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding in my sister's shadow. I was standing in my own light. As the judge entered and the proceedings began, I glanced across the aisle at my sister and father. Their faces wore identical expressions of controlled anger and calculation. They had always been more alike than different, two people who believed the rules didn't apply to them, that money and connections could smooth over any inconvenient truth. But some truths refuse to stay buried. Some injustices demand to be addressed. And sometimes, a simple dress becomes the thread that, when pulled, unravels years of deception. The judge called the court to order, and the battle for truth began in earnest. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, intimate enough that I could hear Brooke's nervous breathing from across the aisle. Judge Margaret Thornton, a stern-looking woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and piercing eyes, reviewed the documents before her with methodical precision. "This is a petition for annulment on grounds of fraud in the inducement," she summarized, looking up at both parties. Mr. Reynolds claims that Ms. Wilson concealed material facts that would have prevented the marriage had they been known. Ms. Winters stood. "That's correct, Your Honor. We have evidence that Ms. Wilson engaged in ongoing infidelity prior to and during the wedding itself, and that she entered the marriage with fraudulent financial intentions, having already embezzled significant funds from Mr. Reynolds' investment firm." Brooke's attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, rose immediately. "Your Honor, these allegations are preposterous. Ms. Wilson is the victim here, a new bride abandoned days after her wedding. Any financial irregularities can be explained as simple misunderstandings between newlyweds sharing accounts for the first time." Judge Thornton's expression remained impassive. "I'll be the judge of what's preposterous, counsel. Let's proceed with the evidence." For the next 2 hours, both sides presented their cases. Nathan's team went first, showing the video of Brooke with Mark at the wedding, followed by financial records detailing the suspicious transfers. Ms. Winters then introduced the documents Laura had provided, establishing a pattern of financial misconduct dating back to the theft of my inheritance. "Your Honor," Ms. Winters said, "we'd like to call Madison Wilson as a character witness." My heart raced as I approached the witness stand. After being sworn in, I faced the courtroom, Nathan looking encouraged, Brooke seething, and my father staring at me with cold fury. "Ms. Wilson, please describe your relationship with your sister," Ms. Winters began. "Brooke is my older sister by 2 years," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We grew up in the same household, but have had a complicated relationship." "How so?" I took a deep breath. "Brooke has always been favored in our family, particularly by our father. She's been rewarded for behavior that would be considered troubling in most contexts: manipulation, dishonesty, taking advantage of others." Objection. Brooke's attorney interrupted. "This is character assassination, not evidence. It speaks directly to pattern and propensity, Your Honor," Ms. Winters countered. "Central to the fraud claim." "I'll allow it," Judge Thornton ruled. "Continue, Ms. Wilson." For the next 20 minutes, I detailed specific instances of Brooke's deceptive behavior, the science project sabotage, the tutor incident, and most significantly, the theft of my inheritance. "Are these bank statements authentic?" Ms. Winters asked, holding up the documents Laura had provided. "Yes," I confirmed. "They show how Brooke changed the name on my educational trust account after our mother died, then transferred all $85,000 to her personal account. Money specifically left for my education." "And what did your sister do with these funds?" "She spent most of it on a 3-month trip to Europe with friends." I glanced at Brooke, whose face had gone rigid. "While I worked 3 jobs to pay for community college." Judge Thornton studied the documents with a frown. "Was this theft ever reported to authorities?" "No, Your Honor." When I confronted my father about it, he denied any wrongdoing had occurred. I was 19 and had no means to pursue legal action on my own. The judge made a note, then nodded for Ms. Winters to continue. "Ms. Wilson, based on your lifelong knowledge of your sister, do you believe she married Mr. Reynolds with honest intentions?" I looked directly at Nathan as I answered. "No. Brooke has always valued status and financial security above all else." She sees relationships as transactional. What can this person do for me? How can they advance my position? She's incapable of genuine commitment. When it was time for cross-examination, Brooke's attorney approached with a predatory smile. Ms. Wilson, isn't it true that you've always been jealous of your sister's success? No, I answered simply. I've been hurt by her cruelty, not jealous of her achievements. He looked skeptical. You expect us to believe that there's no resentment fueling your testimony today? That you aren't enjoying watching your successful sister's life unravel? I thought carefully before responding. I take no pleasure in being here, but I do believe in truth and consequences. My sister has hurt many people, including me, and has never faced any repercussions for her actions. How convenient that you found these old financial records just in time for this hearing, he pressed. Documents that supposedly prove misconduct from years ago. The documents were located by my stepmother, Laura Wilson, I clarified. She provided them to me yesterday. The attorney looked genuinely surprised by this information. He glanced at my father, whose expression had darkened further. No further questions, he said abruptly, returning to his seat. After I stepped down, Brooke took the stand. Gone was the confident, polished banker. In her place sat a vulnerable young woman, eyes brimming with tears, voice quavering with emotion. I love Nathan, she insisted, looking directly at him. Yes, I made a mistake at our wedding. I had too much champagne, and an ex-boyfriend caught me in a moment of wedding jitters. It meant nothing. And the financial transfers, her attorney prompted gently. Simple misunderstandings, she explained. Nathan gave me access to our accounts to manage our household finances. I was setting up savings for our future, for the children we planned to have. Her voice broke on the last words, and she dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. And your sister's accusations about your character? Brooke's expression hardened momentarily before melting back into vulnerability. Madison has always struggled with feeling second best. I've tried to help her, to include her, but she's consistently pushed me away. As for the inheritance issue, that money was meant for both of us. I simply accessed it first. The performance was masterful, and for a moment, I wondered if Judge Thornton was being swayed. But when Nathan's attorney began cross-examination, Brooke's careful facade began to crack. Ms. Wilson, if the funds transferred from Mr. Reynolds' accounts were intended for your future children, why were they moved to offshore accounts registered solely in your name? Brooke hesitated. I wanted to surprise Nathan with how much I'd saved. A surprise of nearly $400,000? Money taken without his knowledge or consent. He gave me access to manage our finances, she insisted. Yet these transfers began 3 months before your wedding, when you had no legal claim to joint finances, Ms. Winters pointed out. And they coincided with frequent meetings with your ex-boyfriend, Mark Daniels. Brooke's composure slipped. That's not. You're twisting everything. I have here text messages between you and Mr. Daniels, Ms. Winters continued, holding up printed pages. Including one sent the night before your wedding that reads, once the accounts are fully transferred, we'll have enough to start over anywhere. Just a few more months of playing the dutiful wife. She looked up. Would you like to explain this message, Ms. Wilson? The courtroom fell silent. Brooke's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. Beside her, my father had gone deathly pale. That's taken out of context, she finally stammered. What possible context would justify planning to abandon your new husband after stealing his money? Ms. Winters pressed. Objection. Brooke's attorney called. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Judge Thornton ruled. Rephrase, counselor. Before Ms. Winters could continue, Brooke suddenly stood. This isn't fair. You're all against me. You've always been against me. She pointed at me, her mask of vulnerability completely gone. She's turned everyone against me because she's jealous. Because she could never measure up. Ms. Wilson, control yourself, Judge Thornton ordered sharply. But Brooke was beyond control. You think you're so righteous, she spat at Nathan. So perfect. You never appreciated what you had in me. And you, she turned to me, her face contorted with rage. You pathetic little nothing in your cheap dress and your kindergarten classroom. You think this makes you important? You're still nobody. Ms. Wilson. Judge Thornton's voice cracked like a whip. One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. My father stood and approached Brooke, murmuring something in her ear. She shook him off violently. Don't touch me. This is your fault too. You taught me how to move the money, how to set up the accounts, and now you're going to let me take the fall. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Thornton banged her gavel repeatedly. Order. We will have order in this court. When silence finally fell, she fixed Brooke with a steely gaze. Step down from the witness stand, Ms. Wilson. Your testimony is concluded. After a brief recess, during which Brooke's attorney could be seen frantically conferring with both her and my father, Judge Thornton delivered her ruling. Based on the evidence presented, I find clear and convincing proof of fraud in the inducement of this marriage. The petitioner has demonstrated that Ms. Wilson concealed material facts that would have prevented the marriage had they been known. Specifically, her ongoing romantic relationship with another man and her systematic embezzlement of funds. She shuffled her papers, then continued. I hereby grant the petition for annulment. This marriage is declared null and void as if it never occurred. Relief washed over Nathan's face. Beside him, Ms. Winters nodded in satisfaction. Furthermore, Judge Thornton continued, I am referring the financial evidence presented today to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of possible criminal charges. The court will also notify the Bar Association and financial regulatory authorities regarding potential professional misconduct. She fixed my father with a pointed look. This may extend to those who facilitated or advised on these financial improprieties. Dad slumped in his seat, the implications of her words clearly hitting home. Court is adjourned. Judge Thornton's gavel came down with finality. As we filed out of the courtroom, I caught sight of Brooke and my father huddled with their attorney, faces grim. Laura stood apart from them, looking uncertain. When she saw me watching, she gave a small nod, acknowledgement of her role in bringing the truth to light. In the hallway, Nathan touched my arm gently. Thank you, he said simply. I know how difficult that must have been. Oddly enough, it wasn't, I admitted. It felt liberating. Ms. Winters approached with a satisfied expression. Excellent result. The annulment is final, and the criminal investigation will proceed. You should prepare for some turbulence in the coming weeks, Mr. Reynolds. Financial fraud cases tend to attract media attention. I can handle it, Nathan assured her. The truth is finally out. That's what matters. As we walked toward the exit, a reporter from the local paper approached. Mr. Reynolds, can we get a statement about today's ruling? Nathan glanced at Ms. Winters, who nodded slightly. Justice was served today, he said simply. That's all I wish to say at this time. The reporter turned to me. Ms. Wilson, how does it feel to testify against your own sister? I thought for a moment. Truth isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary. Today wasn't about taking sides. It was about standing up for what's right. Outside the courthouse, rain had begun to fall, a gentle spring shower that felt cleansing somehow. Nathan offered me a ride home, but I declined. I think I need to walk a bit, clear my head. I understand, he said. I'll call you tomorrow? I nodded, watching as he walked to his car. Then I turned and began the long walk home, letting the rain wash away the tension of the day. The aftermath unfolded rapidly. By evening, local news outlets were reporting on the wedding fraud case, complete with quotes from anonymous sources about Brooke's character and behavior. My phone filled with messages, some supportive, others accusatory, from relatives, acquaintances, even old classmates who remembered Brooke's mean girl tactics from high school. I answered none of them, choosing instead to sit quietly on my balcony, watching the rain and feeling a strange sense of peace. For the first time in my life, I had stood firmly in my truth, regardless of the consequences. The burden of pretending that our family dynamics were normal, that Brooke's behavior was acceptable, had finally lifted. The next morning, I returned to my classroom, greeting my kindergartners with genuine smiles and renewed energy. Children have an uncanny ability to sense when adults are troubled, and several of my students had picked up on my distraction in recent days. "Ms. Wilson, are you happy today?" asked Lily, the observant little girl who had questioned whether metamorphosis hurt. "Yes, Lily," I answered truthfully. "I'm very happy today." "Did something good happen?" she persisted. I thought about how to explain complex adult situations to a 5-year-old. Let's just say I learned that sometimes standing up for what's right is hard, but it feels good afterward. She nodded sagely. Like when I told Tyler it wasn't nice to take Jamal's blocks, even though Tyler is my friend? Exactly like that, I agreed, impressed by her insight. It takes courage to tell the truth, especially when it might upset people we care about. But it's the right thing, she declared confidently. "It is indeed," I said, giving her a gentle hug. Now, who's ready to learn about butterflies? 3 months passed in a blur of legal developments and personal growth. The district attorney filed formal charges against Brooke for embezzlement and wire fraud. After initially denying everything, she eventually accepted a plea deal: restitution of all stolen funds plus a hefty fine, 5 years of probation, and loss of her banking license. My father faced his own legal troubles. The investigation into Brooke's finances revealed his involvement not only in advising her embezzlement scheme, but in several questionable business practices of his own. His reputation in financial circles, once sterling, was irreparably damaged. Several major clients withdrew their business, and the board of his investment firm asked for his resignation. Laura filed for divorce shortly afterward. "I married your father because I admired his strength and success," she told me over coffee one afternoon. "I stayed because I was afraid of life without those things. But watching you stand up for truth showed me that real strength isn't about money or power. It's about integrity." As for Nathan, he slowly rebuilt his life after the public spectacle of the annulment. His firm instituted stricter financial controls, and he threw himself into work, expanding his client base and developing new investment strategies. We stayed in touch, initially to coordinate on legal matters, then gradually transitioning to a genuine friendship. He began volunteering at my school's after-school program, helping older students with math and science. The work seemed to bring him joy, a different kind of satisfaction than his high-pressure banking career. 6 months after the courtroom showdown, Nathan invited me to meet him at a small cafe near my school. The autumn afternoon was perfect: crisp air, golden sunlight, leaves turning brilliant shades of red and orange. "How are the kids?" Nathan asked, stirring his coffee. He'd become genuinely invested in my students' progress, particularly Jamal, who had struggled with math concepts. "They're amazing." Jamal finally mastered his multiplication tables. I smiled, thinking of my student's proud face. "Thanks for working with him." "It's the highlight of my week," Nathan admitted. "Helps keep things in perspective." We fell into comfortable silence. Our friendship had developed naturally over the months, bonded initially by the shared experience of Brooke's betrayal, but growing into something more genuine. He appreciated my passion for teaching. I admired his patience with my struggling students. "I have something for you," he said suddenly, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small wrapped package and slid it across the table. Inside was a gift card to a boutique I'd once mentioned liking, but never shopping at because of the prices. "What's this for?" I asked, confused. "I remember what Brooke said about your dress at the wedding," he explained. "How much it hurt you. I thought maybe you deserved something nice, just because." I felt a lump in my throat. "That's very thoughtful, but—" "It's not charity," he said quickly, reading my expression. "It's a thank you. For helping me see the truth before it was too late. For being honest when no one else would be." I looked down at the gift card, thinking about the dress that had started everything. Such a small thing, really. A piece of fabric that had exposed the truth about my sister, led to a painful but necessary reckoning, and, ultimately, to an unexpected friendship. "Thank you," I said finally, tucking the card into my purse. "But you know, That cheap dress turned out to be worth every penny." Nathan smiled, understanding. "Sometimes the things that seem insignificant end up changing everything. And sometimes," I added, "the people who mock you for what you wear end up revealing who they truly are." Outside, autumn leaves swirled across the sidewalk, golden and free. Like me. Conclusion: the dress that changed everything. If you'd told me a year ago that my $39.99 Target dress would become the catalyst for completely transforming my life, I would have laughed in disbelief. But sometimes, the smallest threads can unravel the most elaborate deceptions. The immediate aftermath of the court case was both easier and harder than I'd anticipated. Easier because the truth had finally been acknowledged. Brooke's manipulative nature, my father's enabling behavior, the years of gaslighting I'd endured. Harder because loss, even of toxic relationships, still carries grief. My father made no attempt to reconcile. His pride, always his defining characteristic, wouldn't allow him to acknowledge his role in our family's dysfunction. The last I heard, he had relocated to Arizona, starting over with a smaller investment practice and a much lower profile. Brooke's fall from grace was spectacular and public. The financial world has little tolerance for embezzlement, and her once promising career imploded overnight. After completing the terms of her plea deal, she moved to Los Angeles, reportedly trying to break into the entertainment industry. Her social media, once filled with professional achievements and luxury lifestyle photos, now showcased desperate attempts at influencer relevance. She never contacted me directly, though I occasionally received drunken, accusatory late-night texts that I left unanswered. Laura, surprisingly, became something of an ally. After divorcing my father, she returned to school to finish the business degree she'd abandoned when they married. "I spent years defining myself through your father's success," she told me. "Now I'm discovering who I am on my own terms." As for me, I continued teaching, finding increased joy in my kindergarten classroom. Without the weight of family drama and pretense, I had more emotional energy for my students, more creativity for my lessons, more enthusiasm for the small victories of early education. Nathan and I continued our friendship, carefully navigating the unusual circumstances of our connection. His volunteer work at my school expanded to organizing a math and science club for older elementary students, revealing a talent for education he hadn't known he possessed. "I've been thinking about a career change," he admitted one evening as we graded math quizzes together. "Banking has never made me feel the way helping these kids does." "You'd be an amazing teacher," I encouraged him. The finance industry's loss would be education's gain. Our relationship evolved gradually from friendship to something deeper. We took things slowly, both carrying scars from our experiences with Brooke. Trust, once broken, rebuilds itself in careful increments, not sweeping gestures. 8 months after that day in court, Nathan invited me to dinner at a small Italian restaurant we both loved. The evening was perfect. Good food, easy conversation, the comfortable rhythm we developed over months of healing together. "I've been thinking about something," he said as we shared tiramisu. "About your dress. The one Brooke mocked at the wedding. My famous Target special?" I laughed. "The dress that launched 1,000 revelations?" "Exactly." He reached for my hand across the table. It made me realize something important. The people who truly belong in our lives are the ones who see our worth regardless of packaging. Profound insight from polyester blend, I teased, though the sentiment touched me deeply. Very profound, he agreed with a smile. And it led me to another realization. His expression grew serious. "I'm falling in love with you, Maddie. Not because of what happened with Brooke, but because of who you are, your integrity, your kindness, your courage." The confession caught me off guard, though perhaps it shouldn't have. Our connection had been building naturally, two people finding unexpected joy in each other's company. "I don't expect you to feel the same way," he continued when I didn't immediately respond. "And I know our history complicates things. But I wanted you to know. I do feel the same way," I admitted quietly. "I've just been afraid to acknowledge it." afraid of what it might mean, given how we came into each other's lives. "We can't change how we met," he said, "but we can choose what happens next." What happened next was a slow, deliberate building of something authentic. We didn't rush into romance, understanding that our foundation needed to be stronger than most. When we finally did start dating officially, it felt like a natural evolution rather than a dramatic beginning. A year to the day after Brooke's wedding, I found myself standing in front of my mirror, preparing for a charity gala Nathan had invited me to. The dress I wore was new, purchased with the gift card he'd given me months earlier. It was elegant but understated, navy blue like the Target dress, but made of flowing silk that felt luxurious against my skin. "You look beautiful," Nathan said when he arrived to pick me up. "But you know what? You looked beautiful in the Target dress too." Brooke just couldn't see it. As we drove to the gala, I reflected on the journey of the past year. From humiliation to vindication. From family secrets to painful truth. From isolation to genuine connection. The venue was familiar, the same hotel where Brooke's wedding reception had been held. As we walked through the ornate doors, I felt a momentary flutter of anxiety, phantom echoes of that painful evening. Nathan sensed my hesitation. "We can go somewhere else if this is too much." I shook my head. "No. This is perfect, actually. A chance to create new memories in a place that once held only pain." Throughout the evening, we mingled with Nathan's colleagues and friends. No one mentioned Brooke or the scandal, old news in the fast-moving financial world. Instead, they asked about my teaching, showed genuine interest in my work with children, treated me as someone worthy of respect and attention. At one point, I excused myself to visit the restroom. As I crossed the ballroom, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirrored wall, a confident woman in a beautiful dress, standing tall, eyes bright with happiness rather than unshed tears. I paused, remembering the last time I'd stood in this room, feeling small and insignificant under Brooke's cruel mockery. The contrast between then and now was striking, not because of the dress, though it was admittedly nicer, but because of the woman wearing it. I had changed, grown stronger, more certain of my worth. That $39.99 Target dress hadn't just exposed my sister's true nature, it had revealed my own strength. The courage to stand for truth, even when it hurt. The integrity to choose right over easy. The wisdom to recognize that sometimes, the people who try to diminish you are actually showing their own limitations. When I returned to Nathan, he was deep in conversation with the school superintendent about educational initiatives. "Maddie has the most innovative teaching methods," he was saying, pride evident in his voice. "Her students' reading scores have improved dramatically under her guidance." The superintendent turned to me with interest. "We should talk about our district's early literacy program. We're always looking for fresh perspectives." Later, as we danced beneath the same crystal chandeliers that had witnessed my humiliation a year earlier, Nathan held me close. "Happy?" "Incredibly," I answered truthfully. "Though it's been a strange journey to get here." "The best journeys usually are," he observed. "And they rarely follow the path we expect." As we swayed to the music, I thought about all the threads that had led to this moment. A mother's death, a sister's cruelty, a father's favoritism, a dress that cost less than $40. Each thread on its own seemed insignificant, yet together they had woven the fabric of transformation. Life rarely gives us neat resolutions or perfect justice. My relationship with my father remained broken. Brooke had faced consequences but hadn't truly changed. The hurt of years couldn't be erased by a courtroom victory or a single moment of vindication. But perhaps perfect endings aren't the point. Perhaps the true victory lies in becoming who we're meant to be, in standing firmly in our truth, in recognizing our worth, in refusing to accept the diminished version of ourselves that others try to impose. That night, as Nathan and I walked hand in hand under a canopy of stars, I felt profound gratitude for my cheap dress and everything it had set in motion. Not because it had led to revenge or comeuppance, though Brooke had certainly faced both, but because it had catalyzed my own metamorphosis. Like the butterflies my students had studied, I had emerged from a chrysalis of family dysfunction and painful history. The process had been difficult, even agonizing at times, but necessary for true transformation. And now, I was finally flying free. If you've ever been made to feel less than by someone who was supposed to love you, if you've struggled to find your voice in a family that refused to hear it, if you've wondered whether standing up for yourself is worth the potential fallout, let my story be your encouragement. The truth may be painful, but living a lie costs far more in the end. Sometimes the most profound journeys begin with something seemingly insignificant, like a $39.99 dress from Target that changed everything. Thank you for watching this story. If it resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and standing up for yourself even when it's difficult. Remember that your worth isn't determined by others' opinions of you, and sometimes the people who mock you for what you wear end up revealing who they truly are.